Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Bertelman, and this is Lakeland Natural Health, and we're going to be talking about fun in the sun. How do we protect ourselves while we're in the Florida sun and have a good time? Why is the sun essential to our bodies, and what does it do for us? So keep your eye on the little yellow guy as we go through the PowerPoint, and you'll see he's not having such a good time at the end of the PowerPoint. All right. So the skin is actually the largest organ that we have. It is an essential organ in that it protects us from our environment, and it also gives our brain information about our environment. It's also part of our immune system. It's also essential for helping us make vitamin D, which is a pro-hormone. The skin basically has 3 layers. It's not very complicated, even though it's a very complicated organ. The top layer is called our epidermis, and that's what we see when we're looking at everybody. We're all looking at everybody's epidermis. The middle layer is the dermis, and that's where we're going to have our follicles, some of our sebaceous glands. We're also going to have some blood vessels and some little arteries feeding our body, our skin. And then the hypodermis is the low level, and that's our fat layer. So remember, we're always talking about fatty acids and why we have to eat good fatty acids. We talk about skin integrity, us being waterproof. We can go into the ocean without soaking up the ocean. We can take a shower every day without soaking up those waters, and that's because of that hypodermis, which is a fatty layer. Well, I talked about that already. Sorry, I guess I should have just passed through, but I liked talking about it while you could see the picture so that you could actually see the layers of the skin. So this little guy is falling asleep in the sun, and he doesn't have any shade around him. Ultraviolet light is actually what's going to create a reaction in our skin. There are 3 types of ultraviolet light that come from the sun, A, B, and C. Ultraviolet light A penetrates deeper into our skin. It's going to actually get all the way down to that epidermis, and it is not going to stimulate vitamin D production. UVA is what you're going to find at your tanning salons. So we're going to get that deep UVA, but we're not going to get vitamin D, and it's going to be a deeper penetrating ray. UVB is actually going to be only on the superficial layers of our skin. It is going to activate vitamin D, and it is that reaction of vitamin D that actually causes us to tan. When the body activates the fatty layer and vitamin D is being produced, when vitamin D is at its maximum, the body hyperactivates our melanin. So I'm polka dotted because the polka dots, the freckles, are actually a hypermelanin reaction. I get dark very quickly. We have all kinds of skin types, all kinds of eye colors. For those of us who are lighter in color, the sun is actually going to start to burn our skin before the melanin is activated, and so we have to be a little bit more careful. We're going to talk about that as we go through the program. UVC is actually filtered out by our ozone layer, so we don't get UVC rays. And we have some folks coming in, so maybe I started a little bit too soon. Hi, come on in.
Hey. We're not late.
No, you are not late. You are not late. I might have started 1 second early. Don't worry about it. Come on in. Miss Michelle's going to print out some more handouts. You guys are welcome to have a seat. And if you want some water, we can get you some water. So basically all we've talked about so far is the skin, why the skin is a protective layer for us against the sun, and how the skin also helps to activate vitamin D, and just some of the rays. So we talked about UVA being a deep penetrating ray, UVB actually activating vitamin D production, and UVC rays not actually coming in contact with the earth. And I see shadows coming, so we have one more person coming. We're going to need some more seats. Okay, well, we can get you a different chair. Hi, come on in. Well, we're having technical difficulties, so it's all fun. You gotta love it. All right. So the sun is actually located 96 million miles away, which is an awful long distance. However, we do receive several different types of energy radiation from the sun, cosmic rays, gamma rays, X-rays. There's ultraviolet, that's what we were talking about, the UVA, the UVB, and the UVC. Infrared, microwave, and radio waves come from the sun as well. The UV index, especially in Florida, and for those of you who are going to visit Australia, is extremely important. The UV index is going to let you know how much time you have outside before you can typically expect to start burning. Every morning I watch Channel 8 News. On the weather, she will put in a little blurb about what our UV index is for the day. So every single news channel, watch the weather, and they will talk about the UV index and our potential for having skin burns that particular day. Sunburns can actually occur for those people who are very light colored within 15 minutes, and we can have reddening of our skin in as little as 30 minutes. So we're talking about gardening. We're not even talking about going to Clearwater Beach with that white sand and laying in the sun. We're talking about mowing our grass, washing our cars, walking the dog. We're talking about simple activities that most of us do on a daily basis where we can actually get quite a bit of sun at very short intervals. First degree burns are those painful red burns when somebody walks up to you and gives you a hug or puts their hand on your shoulder and you go, ouch. That is a first degree burn. It is a burn of the superficial layer of the skin and it is very painful. Second degree burns is when we get the blisters, those little watery blisters that eventually peel and we have the snake skin on our shoulders. Those are actually less painful than first degree burns. There are third degree burns and fourth degree burns, but I'm praying to God that none of you get that deep of a burn. Third and fourth degree burns actually require medical attention because they are full thickness burns where we have burned all the way through all three layers of the skin. And fourth degree burns can actually be, they can actually cause death. You notice our little yellow friend is turning red as the pages turn. He's asleep. Hydration is extremely important when we're outside. Keeping that skin hydrated is going to be a protective barrier against sunburns. I see another shadow coming, so we have just a few more folks coming in. Hi, come on in. No problem. We'll get you a chair. Just give us 1 second. I've been told several times in this office, I don't like water. I don't like the taste of water. Water is boring. So let's make water exciting. Let's do something different with our water. I was telling a patient today, take berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, mints. We can even do cucumbers. Put them in a blender with a very small amount of water, blend them into this really nasty looking slurry, filter out the bits and pieces and only keep the flavor of those berries or cucumbers or mints and pour them into a larger volume of water to give your water a little bit of flavor. Add a little bit of ice. The other thing that you can do is take those berry slurries, put them in little ice cubes, freeze them in the freezer, and put those little ice cubes in your water to give yourself some flavor. Water doesn't have to be boring, but water is essential. If we're calling water by another name, tea, coffee, Gatorade, our protein shake, we're not drinking water. Water has been converted into a medium of another substance. And our hydration is important with just water. Fruits and berries and apple cider vinegar are not going to change the particles of water, so we still can be hydrated with those. Caffeinated drinks like tea and coffee act as a diuretic and can actually cause dehydration. So if we're drinking gallons of tea while we're outside, we can actually become dehydrated. We want to drink enough water. Half your body weight in ounces is approximately what we're looking for. So for a 200-pound person, 100 ounces of water is our goal. We don't have to drink that tomorrow. Let's start slow. Get yourself something where you can actually measure your water. I like those 20-ounce Zephyr Hills bottles. If my goal is to drink 100 ounces a day, that would be 5 of those. Let's start with 2. Just like we start reducing our sugars over time and increasing our good foods over time, let's start with drinking our water quantity slowly over time. Yes, in the beginning when you increase your water, you're going to have to urinate more. Yes, that is a reality. That's part of life. Your body will start to accommodate because your cells will actually absorb that water and you won't be urinating nearly as often as you work on getting your water content in.
Question. When you say tea, you're talking about black tea. Well, what if I do a tea just by boiling water and putting fresh mint? Is that considered water or
Well,
tea?
mint is one of those things that we were talking about getting creative.
Okay.
So if we wanted to just put some mint in there, that would be okay. But we're talking about black tea, green tea, white tea, oolong tea. You can call it what you want, but those teas are actually using the water as a medium, and we're changing the configuration of our water. We're going to drink water by itself. We're not going to drink large amounts of water with our meals. Remember we talked about that last time when we talked about digestion. We don't want to dilute our stomach acid. We want to make sure that when we're eating a meal, we have enough stomach acid to actually digest that meal. So 1 to 2 ounces of a liquid with our meals is appropriate just to rinse out our mouth, get the water down there, moving on. We really should be drinking the majority of our water outside of our meals. Adding a little bit of Celtic salt to your water, which is just a pinch. We're not talking about a lot of Celtic salt, can actually replace sodium chloride and some of the minerals that we lose while we sweat. If any of you have ever tasted your sweat, you can taste that it's salty. If you taste your sweat and it is not salty, we have a problem. Sweat should be salty, which means that we are mineral deficient, and we need to talk about that. We talked about decreasing our stimulants, and if you absolutely have to eat something, you're like, I'm thirsty, but I don't have anything around, your watery fruit, like watermelons, cantaloupes, and honeydew, is a great option for this year, this time of the year. We're going to eat real food. That seems to be the theme of this office. I know it seems to drive some folks crazy, but when we're eating real food, we are nourishing our entire body, including our skin. It is essential for us to have protein. Our skin is made of protein. It's essential for us to have good fatty acids from butters, avocados, nuts, and seeds. Remember, we talked about that fatty layer in our skin that's also responsible for protecting our body and also activating vitamin D. So this is why this seems to be the ongoing theme of this office, is to eat real food. If we're eating sugars, if we're eating processed foods, we're not getting the vitamins, minerals, and basic nutrients that we need to feed our body. We're going to be more vulnerable, and we're even going to be more vulnerable to skin sun exposure. Fun in the sun tips for all. So sunscreens really should be a last resort. Better than sunscreens would be covering up with clothing. Sunscreens have actually not been proven effective against skin cancer. And as a matter of fact, there's lots of scientific articles out there that will say that melanoma has increased over the years, that we've actually increased our sunscreen usage. So we're not actually protecting ourselves. We think that we are because we put on sunscreen and we go outside and we hang out there all day long. We jump in the pool, we get in the ocean, we take clothes on and off of our body, we sweat. We're not reapplying sunscreen appropriately. and we're not wearing appropriate clothing to protect ourselves. So, number one, wear proper clothing. And we're not talking about covering up like they did in the old days when we went into the beach, but have an umbrella. We used to go sailing when we were in Southeast Asia. We would lay on the deck, we would cover ourselves up with our towel. You're still having a good time without that maximum sun exposure all day long. So all we're saying is be smart. We're going to find shade or we're going to make shade. So trees are wonderful, umbrellas are wonderful. Sunglasses are a must. Sunglasses actually do protect your eyes from UV radiation. And honestly, I'm bad about wearing my sunglasses consistently, but you can actually see eye changes in folks long term when they don't wear their sunglasses. So if you want to keep your white eyes, the white of your eyes beautiful, and you want to keep your eyes healthy, do wear your sunglasses. We're going to plan. So maybe we don't want to be out in the middle of the day with no clothes or working on a big project where we're going to be exposed to the sun at the highest peak of the sun when it's at its very hottest and when it's going to burn us. So maybe planning on doing stuff in the morning. Maybe we're going to plan on doing things in the afternoon. And again, we're going to check that UV index to find out how much time do we have in the sun before we start to burn.
Can I tell you something about, I always take an umbrella and I put sunscreen, and one time I forgot to reapply, and even under the umbrella, I got sunburned because of the reflection of the sand.
That's exactly right.
It's still burning.
Yes, that is exactly right. You can be burned in a cloudy day, you can be burned under an umbrella.
Yeah.
That's why we have to stay smart. When we're reading the SPFs, just because it says SPF 5000 doesn't mean that it's going to be better than an SPF 15. They have actually shown that SPF 15s are more than adequate to protect us from the sun if they are properly applied and reapplied. We don't have to go for the SPF 50s just because we think that that's going to give us more protection. Sometimes those are more expensive. The oxybenzone is a chemical that they use in chemical sunscreens. And there's a little bit of argument, but there is a large group of people that are concerned about that changing hormone levels. It's not one that, even if there's a question about whether it can change hormones, let's just stay away from it. We have other options, so we can just avoid that. We don't want to spray on our sunscreens. We want to rub them on our bodies. For a couple of reasons. One, when we're spraying it, we're creating a toxic cloud that we actually have to inhale, and all those chemicals are going into our soft little lungs, and our lungs are like, okay, thanks a lot, appreciate all this gooey sunscreen that I have to deal with. But the other thing is that when we're spraying on sunscreen, we might not actually be getting a big enough or thick enough cover of that sunscreen on our body, and we might leave some places unprotected. We're going to reapply our sunscreen often, depending upon what you're doing. There's no right or wrong answer. If you're in the pool, if you're in the ocean, you want to reapply. If you're sweating a great deal, you want to reapply more often. If you're just going to put on sunscreen, go hang outside for 30 minutes, okay, maybe you don't have to reapply at that particular point. But if we're going to be getting wet, taking clothes on and off of our body, we're going to be wiping that sunscreen off or sweating it off, and we definitely want to reapply. According to an article that we read, the FDA recommendations for sunscreen is actually pretty dismal. Other countries, including Europe, some of our sunscreens wouldn't even be allowed to be sold. So we just need to be smart about the product. Remember, we have to be our own watchdogs, reading about our sunscreens, finding out what they have out there. What are our options? And he's not happy anymore. He's been out there way too long. Just a few blistering sunburns over a small period of time, usually in our young years, is actually what causes us to show up with skin cancer in our older years. Please take care of your skin. Please take care of your children's skin. Young children really should not be exposed to the sun. So we're talking about infants and little tiny kids shouldn't be out there until their little skin turns red. We need to be protecting them. And they've got some great clothing that will actually protect us We can have our little kids out in the pool all day with a cute little hat on and a nice little long sleeve shirt and protect them without putting toxic chemicals on their bodies and without exposing them to a great deal of sun.